Good evening. Can I just remind you that the reason we're here is because we represent the people of our town, and we try to do that with humour, with friendship, and with respect. Thank you very much. Right, so we are now live, both visually and audibly. Thank you. Gosh, I've never done it. Right, we welcome you. Apologies, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have apologies from Councillor Lambert, Councillor Barrow, Councillor Dickinson and Councillor Kanji.
Councillor Taylor.
And Councillor Taylor.
Do we have any declarations of interest? Oh, sorry, I always forget we have to do this to accept that these days. Can I have a proposer for accepting those apologies, please? I can't see across the room. We've got Councillor Weeding there with her hand up to propose. Can I have a show of hands, please?
We need a second, Chair. I am so very sorry.
Seconder, Councillor Hope. Show of hands. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Declarations of interest.
So, Madam Mayor, we've had none pre-notified and no councillors have sought a dispensation for this meeting.
Thank you. Minutes of the last meeting, you've all received your minutes. I just of all read them. Could I, first of all, are you happy with them? If you are, could somebody propose acceptance, please? Councillor Bell, seconded. Councillor Goff. Show of hands, please.
Such an exciting next matter.
Oh, that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much to Councillor Berman for the meeting. I did watch on a very inadequate Wi-Fi on YouTube. Very interesting. Thank you. Councillor questions. I believe we have a question from Councillor Gray.
Thank you for accepting the question. As we enter budget season, both councils, I'm looking for some reassurance that there's no service dumping, service creep. There's been a number of instances in the last year. Grit bins passing from DC to Wayne Town Council. There's been bus stops mentioned. There's signage around and so on. I was looking for some reassurance from the town clerk that we haven't agreed to take any further services from Gloucester Council. Because we're coming into budget season, and that won't be clear that we're not budgeting for those. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Mayor. To reassure councillors, if we're asked to be one part of the agreement in any devolution agreement, it will come before council. If there is a budget or a capacity impact, I think my thoughts on the subject are well known to councillors, that the fact that another agency decides it's not going to carry out a service anymore does not create a duty on the part of the town council. We have our own work to carry out, and if anybody wishes to enter into negotiations with us to take on any part of their work, we're more than happy to talk to them and to bring a paper in front of councillors. I'm not aware of anything pending at the moment, but I will keep everyone informed if anything does come forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other questions? I'm happy to take any other questions that I haven't been informed of, although the clerk or the assistant clerk may not be able to answer. I'm not getting any indications, so I'm going to assume there are no more. I'm going to go on to my announcements, which I will be brief on. First of all, my thanks again to Councillor Berman for last full council and for attending the ceremony of the keys on Portland at the weekend, which the residents of Portland deem as very, very important. So it was very good of you to be there. Thank you. And for any other engagements that you did, I hope you enjoyed them. I was at Louviers at the beginning of the month. That's our twin town. We've been twinned with them for a very, very long time. They're planning a huge celebration next August to celebrate their liberation by the Allied forces from the occupation of Germany. They have a huge feeling of friendship towards us because the Louviers residents suffered very badly during the last war. They were almost razed to the ground in many areas, and they've achieved enormous building programs since. But they're extending an invitation, obviously, to the society, the training society, but to all of us to join them in those celebrations. And I'm sure that Councillor Brooks, as the chairman of the Louviers Society, would be very, very pleased to hear from anyone who'd like to take part in that. They're also very interested in the D-Day event that we are planning for June, and are very anxious to be included in that as well. As I say, the occupation of France, they still feel very strongly, and they have a strong affiliation with us, which is nice. It's very nice. On the other end of the scale, Helen Legg and I played host to 50 German students and their teachers here in the chamber yesterday afternoon. They're on exchange with Budmouth Academy. They had an opportunity yesterday to walk around the town, around the beach and the harbour, which they loved. They hope very much that they'll be able to come back regularly. They were very warmly welcomed, and they were very, very complimentary of the entire town. So that's good. And it was particularly nice because with the pandemic, all of those things have ended and they've started again. And it was good to see that those friendships are still there despite all the things that have happened over the previous few years. So that's great. I won't keep you any longer on that. You can see everything on the blog, on the Facebook page and everything else. And of course, anybody who wants to join me on any events that are coming up, if you see an engagement that you're particularly interested in, please let me know, because we want this to be very inclusive. Public questions. Have we got any members of the public?
Yes.
We have no questions pre-notified, Madam Mayor.
Right, in that case, I'm going to move straight on to item 8, which is the neighbourhood plan. And before we start, I want to give our thanks yet again to all those who've worked so hard on our neighbourhood plan. It's been a huge piece of work, and we are extremely grateful to you all. Councillor Northam, I'm going to invite you to lead on this. I know we've got Colin Marsh with you. Colin, do you want to come and sit up at the table so that you've got a loudspeaker if David refers to you at all?
Yes, Robert.
Yeah, and Penny, I don't know whether you want to join Colin or whether you'll just come across when you want to, but please, if there is anything that you want to add at any time, please do. We're very grateful for you being here with us and for the work that you've done.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the neighbourhood plan, Colin is the deputy chair of the steering group. I'm the chair of the steering group, and Penny has been with the steering group from the start. So they've come along to support tonight's update to the town council. Things have been moving very rapidly. So I only wrote my report this morning. I will give it to the town clerk for attachment. And so if you'll bear with me, I'll read a little bit. We're nearing the end of stage 2 of the process. Our stage 2 completes with a regulation 14 consultation, which lasts for 6 weeks, and that's on the pre-submission draft plan. The results of this are then reported in a formal consultation statement. Our plan is updated, approved by the steering group, and endorsed by the full council. This is then provided to Dorset Council, who conduct stage 3. This includes a second period of formal consultation, independent examination, and referendum. The third stage, we shall start in the new year. We hope to have the plan made by summer 2024. You'll be aware that last time we talked about the fourth public engagement. This was primarily around the sites that we're considering for allocation. We held 4 drop-ins and had approximately 60 people attend, with 33 forms completed. These provided reasons for favouring or not favouring sites for development. We're disappointed by the level of response we got. It is down to a number of factors. The summer period, we didn't have a great deal of notice. Whilst we put it all out on social media and other things, it seems to pass many people by. I'm very jealous of the hundreds of responses that were made to the Seafront Master Plan. I think it's much more immediate to many people, the Seafront Master Plan. So we're pressing on, and their formal engagement, of course, is the opportunity for all residents and local businesses and other interested parties to formally comment on the plan. In the last couple of weeks, we've received the interim strategic environmental assessment and the preliminary findings of viability testing. So a little bit more about that one in a moment. All these elements will be subject to our next steering group meeting, which is on this Friday, when we should be agreeing which sites we're actually going to allocate. The final viability testing report and CE plan appraisal will be arriving next week, and we should be holding another steering group meeting on the 4th of October to agree the pre-submission plan. On the 4th of October, we agree the pre-submission plan. We do any final polishing, and that will go to full council for endorsement on the 18th of October. This discussion tonight is not seeking endorsement, it's merely raising some of the topics to you and giving you an idea of the programme. You remember the last time we talked, it was about the initial draft, and the initial draft has been amended, and the principal amendments are around site allocations and inclusion of strategic environmental targets. And Colin will provide a little brief on that in a moment. There's also some rationalisation, tightening up the wording following the public engagement, and about 30 pages of detailed comments from the Dorset Council Planning and Policy team. All that's been digested. So in consequence of partly of our disappointment on the 4th level of fourth engagement is we've drafted a new comms plan which takes place over the next 2 months. That's starting with posters advertising the event, press releases, web page, social media, paid radio adverts, that hurts to say that word, paid, a brochure dropped to every resident in Weymouth at the start of the consultation. We had a number of residents who said, "Oh, I've never heard anything about this. Do you read the Echo? No. Where do you go for your social media? We don't really go to social media." So we realised that the only way to get to everybody is to stick it through the letterbox. And even then, they may not read it, but we're going to make sure we do that. So that plan also continues then with in the consultation period, a number of roadshows where people can come and review the plan and ask questions and provide their feedback. In this formal consultation, all feedback is captured, recorded, and we have to analyse it. It's that bit of analysis which means we don't get the revised plan out to Dorset Council until the new year. So at this stage, I mentioned Colin, and I'd like to just hand over to Colin for a moment to tell you a little bit about the strategic environmental targets and the difficulty we've had in deciding partly what to do.
Thank you. Thank you to the chair for allowing me to attend and to address council. I'll be very brief, but to give some idea of the development of the strategic environmental targets, their impact and how they fit in, not only with the neighbourhood plan, but also with some of the wider issues within the Weymouth Town Council. So first of all, we built the neighbourhood plan very much around this council's own declared climate and ecological emergency in 2019, and so that's been a common theme from the beginning. I know it's important to this council, it's certainly been important to the steering group, and from the public to the public from the report we received. It's built around 4 cross-cutting objectives, and what we mean by that is that they are essential principles that apply to all policies within the neighbourhood plan. They cover carbon neutrality, and you can imagine that's a huge area in itself, resource efficiency, biodiversity, and climate change management. They're 4 objectives. You've seen those before the time that the initial draft came to council in May. We've collaborated as part of that and saying, how do we move this forward? How do we get very much the involvement of the Weymouth Town Council? And so we've collaborated very closely with colleagues here on the CE working group. A number of steering group members, Penny, myself, Rob Cheeseman and others have been able to attend on a regular basis and work with the CE working group on establishing an action plan. That action plan really aims to get consistency, so we're actually working together, we're supporting each other. We've not got pockets of policies or plans in isolation. They are actually integrated, we've got consistency, and they are supporting each other. And we believe we've achieved that. There is cross-reference in the CE working group action plan. There's no doubt come to this council in relation to policies and to the strategic environmental targets that I will mention. We've worked on a well-founded principle that if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. And I think we've also adopted that same sort of thinking in terms of, what gets measured gets done. What we didn't want as danger with policies and plans is it's what a former colleague of mine used to call spots, strategic plans on the shelf, and they never actually move forward from that. So we tried to address that with these targets, working with our consultants on advice. We believe we've got something that can help us to actually measure and deliver. And as part of that, we've developed 31 strategic environmental targets. A number of colleagues on the working group have seen those. They are available in the public domain. We are making a few final tweaks to that particular document. The scope of those is very much around, as you would expect, energy efficiency, targets in retrofit and in new build properties. And starting to think about looking to the future in that respect and what we should be trying to achieve. We've taken that on board because that has been adopted by a number of other councils in their neighbourhood plans. It was something that was developed by an independent organisation working with consultants in the Chilterns, I believe. 3 councils came together and paid a lot of money to actually get a very well made document prepared on these sorts of standards. And we've taken that largely from there, much of the energy efficiency targets, as you would expect. So that's one element of that. So it's well founded. We've had that checked locally and verified, and we've got verification of the standards are indeed appropriate and up to date. The second area that we've addressed is biodiversity, really important within the neighbourhood plan. So the policies within the plan and a number of aspects of biodiversity apply, but also things like the management of trees plan, the biodiversity plan that Weymouth Town Council has, and that has informed some of the targets directly. And I really express my particular gratitude to Emily Brown for the support that Emily's given us in actually making information available and promoting that aspect when we've asked questions. And then finally, a key area to expect climate change, which covers a range of things within the plan, from transport through to sustainable drainage systems, waste recovery, etc. So there are a number of 4 key areas basically within those 31 targets. They've been endorsed by the CE working group. They have asked for an incorporation of a section just to explain the use and the users. That has now been completed, and I believe that will be actually available at the next meeting for the working group to discuss. And what we do see is that is not always a wide range of users, not only the neighbourhood plan in terms of local planning authority, the local council, but yourselves in terms of the advisory capacity on plans, and also members of public organisations, professionals will actually use that, those targets as a point of reference, a point of very, very useful reference as a first point of call to go to. They can then go to other, it is reference in itself, they can go to secondary reference for more detail as required. So we would have to emphasise that they are advisory, in the same way your planning consultations are advisory. But we believe they are persuasive. They do provide a really readily accessible point of reference. And in that respect, because they are part of the neighbourhood plan, they would carry more weight than they might normally be expected to do. That actually, I think, also shows that Weymouth Town Council is forward-looking in these areas, and they need to represent the future in terms of the next 17 years. So to really end that, I would say our councillors supportive of such an approach. I welcome any comments and any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Colin. That's very comprehensive. I appreciate that. Members, you've had a long opportunity to read all of the notes, and what I'd like to point out to you that if you have burning feelings about the neighbourhood plan, then David and Colin and the other steering members would love you to take part. So this is an opportunity for you to just very briefly make some comments now. If you're strongly in favour or against, then you need to be part of developing this plan. So I'm going to give you. I had said 10 minutes. I'll stick with 10 minutes. You've got 10 minutes maximum in which to ask
Sorry,
any
Kate,
questions.
I've got a little bit more to say, so we could just take some questions at the moment
Okay.
on the strategic environmental targets.
Okay. Any questions from anybody? Doesn't look like it. They've all read it very
Okay.
fully, David. So
Could
go
I ask
on.
Colin a question? Where else have these strategic environmental targets been used? Which, can you name any councils?
Yeah, they've been used in a number of areas. As I said, there are 3 of the Chiltern area councils. Oxfordshire District Council is one that I'm aware of. The most prominent of these has been Faversham Town Council, so putting it on a level with themselves, they've used this very effectively, and that's actually caused it to be promoted with a number of other councils. I know some of the Northumberland councils have taken it on recently. I could provide a list, I'm sure, if I was required to do so.
Right, thank you. May I continue?
Please do.
So,
But you've got 5 minutes, David.
okay, so the site allocations that we've been looking at were the ones that were presented in the 4th engagement. There was some very mixed response, but predominantly in favour of moving forward with affordable housing across a number of sites. The sites which we've included, I will very briefly run through. The Mount Pleasant Old Tip site, we're looking at that becoming a transport interchange hub to encourage out-of-town parking, particularly in the peak summer period, and the surrounding area to the park and ride to be used for leisure use and power generation use. This sort of adds a little bit to what Dorset Council were proposing in their transport levelling up and out fund application that was sadly unsuccessful. We're also looking at the Jubilee sidings extension. We've had some discussion with Network Rail, and we're looking here at a mixed use of residential, particularly social housing, and some employment or training or provision of workshops, offices, skills centre, or a limited amount of retail. Sometimes you need to have the limited amount of retail to fund some of the other stuff. We've got a single site in Littlemore called Randolph Beverley Road. The central part of this site, we're choosing considering allocating for residential development approximately 26 dwellings, the remainder of the site being designated as a local green space. We've got land at Buttermouth Avenue site with 9 hectares going to 250 dwellings with 50% affordable homes, and 23 hectares going to Dorset Wildlife Trust. That sort of increases the size of Lorton Valley Nature Park by 50% by handing that across. There's also Wyckoff Farm North site to the north of that site, and further 11 hectares for residential development. Again, 50% affordable, 230 dwellings, with 8 hectares going across the Dorset Wildlife Trust. The site of Edmonds Farm is right opposite me, and they were digging the access today to the existing site. 9 hectares, we made a habitat of 150 homes. I can't persuade that developer at this moment to go for more than 35%, but we may choose to allocate more than 35% because if certain green sites we've done the viability testing for, and if they can support 50%, why can't this greenfield site support 50%? Moving on quickly, land south of Essex Roundabout, there are 3 options. These may become academic because land is now up for sale from Dorset Council. Longmore Tip, it's got 3 parts. The south part is the car parks where we could put some houses and some leisure use. The midsection is potentially residential, 70 to 90 homes, remaining 8 hectares for buffering around the site and capping. And the north section for employment use, including small industrial units. And lastly, we didn't want to forget Lakeside Super Bowl, which we think should be allocated for residential, primarily for residential development. I've got a little bit more to say, and I'll come to a close there and ask if there are any further questions, either on what I said by way of intro or on the site allocation.
Thank you very much, David. Any questions? No? Oh, sorry, Howard.
I don't have a question, but I'm a bit embarrassed because no questions are being asked. If you like. The reason why I'm not asking a question, I think you're doing a fantastic job and doing it thoroughly. So I'm quite happy with what you're doing.
I'll answer a question that wasn't asked. Yes.
Of course you will.
Thank you. The housing needs analysis showed that we have a shortage, considerable shortage of housing. Sadly, even with these allocations, we only provide a further 388 affordable homes if all those sites went forward. And that still leaves us with a shortfall of about another 300. So this is a move in the right direction. It doesn't sort the problem out, which is enough affordable housing, enough social housing for residents of Weymouth over the next 17 years. There's more that needs to be done. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Oh, lots of hands up now. Councillor Bell and then Councillor.
Yeah, thank you for the report. Obviously came along to one of the engagement nights and we were talking with the gentleman who was involved in household recycling sites, if you remember, on the evening. The Longmore Tip midsection, the yellow area on that, what would happen to the current existing household recycling centre? Is that part of the plans that have to be thought about, or is that separate?
So for the site to proceed, an alternative will have to be found, or a way of accommodating the household recycling centre adjacent to. I think that's a not so preferred option. And speaking off the cuff, you could imagine the household recycling centre being located to Chickerell, the old I've lost the word now.
Waste transfer.
Waste transfer, thank you, site there, which could form an accessible area that isn't in such a prime site.
Yes, can I just ask, within the document, what are we using as a definition of affordable? Yeah.
We're using the government's definition of affordable. I don't like it, but it's what they put. Affordable home covers both homes to buy at some form of discounted purchase scheme or shared ownership. And it includes homes to rent which is either at the affordable rent or at social rent. And both of those are often, those rental forms are often referred to as social housing and are usually delivered by housing associations. Is that sufficient? And predominantly we're saying we need rent, not to buy. You know, buying is outside of many people's reach. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right, we've been asked to note the progress of the neighbourhood plan, which I think we all have. I think we all agree that we are extremely grateful to you all for the work that you're doing and the depth in which you're doing it. And we will continue to watch with interest and hopefully involvement as and when required. Colin, thank you very much. Penny, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Please don't feel you have to sit on through the rest of the meeting if you'd like to go. If you want to stay a little while and then slip away, we will understand totally. Thank you very much. I don't mean, you know what I mean. Lovely if you'd like to stay. We're happy if you'd like to go home. Thank you very much. I didn't say you could slip away, David, but our next item is item 8, which is the staff handbook and policy review. I'm going to invite Lisa to join us. Lisa, if you'd like, I think everybody knows you now, but just in case they don't, if you'd like to introduce yourself. And can I confirm that you all received the email that Jane sent out to you today with an amendment of the papers? Some of you are nodding, so I know I've got mine, so I guess you all got yours. Lisa, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Hello. Oh, okay. Thank you very much. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Lisa. I've been with the Town Council since January as business manager. One of the core things I'm looking at is centralising some of the services and that we to support some of the operational teams. One of those things is looking at HR. So we're taking all of our old paper HR files into digital format. We brought in a Krona service, so they support us with HR advice. They've also supported us create a handbook, and we're going to bring in Bright HR system, which will look after moving away from Sage HR, which is the system we used before. That will provide us with things like rotas, potentially clocking in, clocking out people. Managers will always be able to managers will always be able to access their HR files for their teams. It's just a bit more of a flexible HR system. The main thing I brought to your attention tonight is going to be the HR handbook, which you all had a little look at last week. We should have got to last week. There have been a couple of changes, none of them are material, but I will go through them just in case anyone did miss it. On page 13, jury service has been updated to green book. So this is a material change because it's already something that we comply to, but it was a slight error. Page 19, absence trigger points. This is something we already use, so it's just been put into the book. So it should not be material change. Page 45, initially the handbook went out saying that we would not allow any use of personal phones to take photos. After consultation with managers, a lot of our teams do take photos for work, which we put on our social media, so that's been changed, that they can only share those photos with authorization of their line manager or the communications team. And page 45, so on bullet point 12, you'll see that the word uniform's been added in on the end of the smoking point. So initially it said no smoking in a company vehicle, and now it says no smoking in a company vehicle or in uniform. Those are the latest changes. And the recommendation today would be that we accept the latest handbook. This will then go out to consultation with the rest of the council next week. They'll have time to review it, come back with any concerns they have, which we will consider and have it be adopted and be a one-stop shop for everyone. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Lisa. This has come to you this evening, I believe, recommended by the HR committee. I'm going to turn to the chairman of HR in a moment, but before that, Colin, if you give me 2 seconds, I'm just going to ask if anybody's got any questions, because you or Lisa might want to answer them. Councillor Gray.
Does I was particularly looking at the smoking one, does that cover contractors who work for us? I'm thinking particularly about the toilet cleaners.
So within the handbook, if we do have, so it does actually cover contractors, but everything in this will also be covered, will be overridden by any actual contracts. So that would be something we have to double check when we sign the contracts with the individuals.
Thank you.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's the same people that are employed with us, anyone who has a contract will always override a handbook, because this is a policy change if you have change their contracts. Thank you.
Colin.
Thank you very much. I mean, this is a massive document, and HR committee have had a chance, an advanced chance to look at it and then discuss it at our meeting. It's an excellent document, well researched, obviously grown at our leading in their field as HR advisors. And I would just recommend this all to you, because the HR committee spent a bit of time discussing it, and I think most of us read it. I can't say the same without too many years reading it, but it is a long document.
Is that a formal proposal for acceptance? Thank you. Could I have a seconder? Sorry, Councillor, did you want to speak?
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I'm not going to admit to reading the whole document. I know our HR committee read and reviewed the proposals to us. But what I'm kind of interested in is why the amendments being made to now smoking in uniforms. Now, I understand smoking in vehicles, company vehicles isn't permitted, it's against the law. But just uniforms, I'm just wondering why that's been brought in. If somebody's on a break and wishes to have a cigarette, that's their choice. There's nothing criminal, there's nothing embarrassing, it's not reputationally damaging to this council.
Oh, it is.
In my opinion, okay? Entitled to an opinion. So yeah, I don't understand why that amendment has come forward from that of the one that the advisor have given us, and since the recommendation from HR.
I'm going to ask the town clerk to answer that. Is it okay?
Thank you. It's already council policy that those employees who wear a uniform do not smoke in their uniform. They're asked to cover up with a light jacket or something, and it does come down to promotion of healthy lifestyles, the council sort of living that, what we wish to see in our communities. And also it does form a bit of a reputational risk, because if our workers are seen wearing the logo, leaning on a shovel, having a cigarette, the perception of the public is that maybe our work output isn't what it should be, even though that person might have been shoveling away for the past 4 hours and has just stopped on a completely legitimate break.
Lisa, did you want to add anything to that?
No, that's all. The only other thing I was going to say is that a lot of our spaces are actually child friendly, so you're working in parks and spaces where you've got a lot of families around, so again, there's that representation.
Thank you. Councillor Legg.
Thank you. Yeah, but I'm not wearing a uniform, I'm not, because I am in a building. This is I think this is a very good set of rules, if you like. And that's the problem, it's lengthy, it's detailed, and I'm a bit concerned that how all our employees will know and understand what parts of it will affect them in their jobs and their work. I don't want any of them to have to feel they've got to employ a barrister to tell them what they can and cannot do. So what will the council do to make sure that not only is this, we tell them what we want them to behave like, but to make them be able to understand what it is we expect them to behave like. You can always say something to somebody, but if they don't hear you, it doesn't mean anything.
Thank you, Lisa. Would you like to come back in on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So actually the main goal of this was to do that, to make these policies a lot more transparent. There's been a lot of confusion from everyone at all levels about what we actually can and can't do, what rules haven't been updated. And that was the main premise on this, is that we do provide that transparency. So if you do have more work, you can do, you know where to go. The first thing I would say is that actually we're always covered by the Green Book. We do that for various reasons. The Green Book is a 245-page document. So this is a very slimmed down version. We've picked out the policies that are going to be most relevant to people, that they're probably most regularly going to want to access. We still provide them the Green Book so that if they want to reference it, if there's something very ad hoc that they want to look at, they can have that. But actually this has been to make it a lot more transparent. On top of creating this, there's going to be training for managers. We've already started, we've already had an initial consultation with them. There's going to be full training and rolled out with all of the team members the next few weeks. They'll be given time to read it. There'll be a 7-day process that they can come back to me, grill me all they want, with every question if they have, and have time to come back and say, actually, I don't like this, I'm not sure about this. This is going to be open to everyone. It's not that we're going to hide. We really want them to go and engage with it. So hopefully have an opportunity to understand it. There aren't actually any major changes to what they currently have. It's just making it clear what that is and where it is.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to go to the town clerk and then categories.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just to confirm that this staff handbook is an amalgamation of policies we already have. It's a much slimmed down version. Lisa and Crona working together have done an excellent job on streamlining and simplifying our policies. It has been suggested that some of our original policies were maybe slightly wordy and a bit lengthy and hard to understand. So this represents actually trying to make it easier for staff. And if you did look at all the policies we already have, you're up to about 200 pages. So coming in at about 60 pages, this is actually less pieces of paper and everything is in one place, which we hope will make it simpler for staff overall. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Madam. I think my microphone's not plugged in. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I wanted to say that on HR committee, we did have a good look through this and question the town clerk and everybody else about anything that we wanted clarification on. I think the policy, the whole thing itself is actually really mindful on mental health, sickness, holiday, all the things that are really important. And I do think it's really good that they've slimmed it down. I think it's important to recognise that it's a useful tool for employees as much as employers, because the amount of people who struggle at work and then don't know what the rules are around things that are going on, or how to make a grievance, or who to go to when there are problems. And I have to say there's a lot of employers out there who don't give their staff this kind of information at the beginning. And so there's all sorts of legal issues later on both sides. So from a union perspective, I would say that it's a really good policy. It's a really good handbook. There are lots of good policies, really good handbook, and we should probably take it on. I'll probably second it as well. Thank you.
I was just going to say, Councillor Rees, so you're going to second the proposal from Councillor Huckle?
Yeah.
Let's go through. Did you want to speak, Councillor? I'm sorry, you have to go to the.
I'm just picking up on what was been said about smoking. I'm just a little bit concerned. We live in a free country, and smoking outside of perfectly legal. I'm just a bit concerned that somebody who wants to leave on their shovel to have a cigarette as long as they put something over their uniform. I mean, are we being clear on this? Because I'm moving on somebody to reprimand because they want to cover that. You live in a free country. We have some clarity on the policy that if you want to vote, you'll cover up the uniform.
don't know what that is. You didn't know what it was. Beyond.
So it's more code.
I've got, sorry, we've got councillor James and councillor Wakeling, and then, so, yes, councillor Wakeling, and then we're going to go for a vote, okay?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the headings up there was health and personal circumstances and health issues. There's just two things I want to ask under that, but have they been taken into consideration? And that is menopause and periods, because that is a big thing for women, and if that's not taken into consideration in their workplace, but was that actually in there as a general, or is that specifically mentioned?
I think, sorry, what page is that? I don't know what specifically said, but what we've tried to do is incorporate as many things as possible. We've got mental health because it tends to be dealt with very different to other issues that people suffer with. But we have had to be quite broad in how we manage things, and we've tried to make it really transparent how we manage any illness or accident, and that would be included in it. I would hope that most of the line managers were very considerate of whatever that individual is going through. And we really are actively trying to create an environment where we are supporting that, whether that's use specifically, it's really struggle periods, or you are going through menopause, or you do have some other element that we can't cover every single possible thing that could happen to someone. The human bodies are very complex, and so we try to make it quite broad so that they understand what the support could be. Ultimately, whenever you're looking at absence, sickness, performance, it's very individual to that person. And hopefully it just makes it clear on what that looks like. It will come down to the managers. We have Corona support alongside that. We have a welfare support line for them to get extra access to. We've created different steps so that if you go to your line manager and you're not happy with that, then you know actually who do I go to next. That's been trying to make it clear in that. So hopefully we'll cover a broad range of the management.
It's just those things over the years have been forgotten for women. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Wakeling, and then I'm going to ask Charmaine. Yeah, okay. Okay,
Councillor James needs to apologize if he wasn't aware that some, as the SLT was discussed about some coaching and developing and supporting to support workforce and menopause. A lot more training and support out there now than we was a few years ago, so that we are coming into that.
Thank you. Is that okay, councillor James?
Yeah, thank you, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, councillor Wakeling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd just like to reassure other members, I've worked for a number of companies, and this appears to be a very standard employee handbook these days. Virtually every employer has this document. I mean, they're almost just off the shelf, so I have no concerns with that. My question is, how does this interplay with our existing policies? Will we void those policies, because this is now the sole document? So that will, when this has gone through staff consultation, it will come back as we are going to shred 10 policies and replace them with this.
Don't think I was envisaging bringing it back unless there are significant changes, unless staff ask for something that's not in there or is in addition to what we already have. The recommendation in front of you tonight is to approve the adoption of the staff handbook and revised policies following staff consultation. So anything that we already have in another form will be replaced by this.
So tonight's vote is to throw, well, eventually to put our existing policies in a fire. That's what I want to say.
Right, we've had a proposer, we've had a seconder. I think we've had a reasonably good opportunity to discuss this, so I'd like to put it to a vote, please. Can I have a show of hands?
What's unanimous?
Thank you very much, committee. David, did you want to rejoin the meeting? Or are you...
Just speaking with the resident, but I'm conscious of something from the resident.
That's fine, but Technically speaking, you need to be sitting up here to vote, but that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much.
And yes, I'd really like to be concentrating on us for a few minutes. But that's okay too. As we put, can I, you know, at the risk of more oohs and ahs, we've got a number of items coming up, all of which are being recommended by committees. That means they've been through quite lengthy debates, they've been through a lot of work, and they come to you as recommended from those specialist committees. If you feel strongly about an item, if you know a whole lot about an item, or if you absolutely object to the recommendation that's coming, can I suggest that you might have attended the committee meeting and made those points there when they could actually have been acted upon, rather than try to retrospectively change your recommendation when it comes here, which is absolutely fine, except that our officers haven't had time to do the research to answer your questions always. So we're always at risk of either deferring it and delaying action, or approving on the hoof, which isn't altogether the best way of making the decision. With that in mind, I'll go on, and I apologise that I sound as though I'm teaching my grandmother to suck eggs and so on, but it's really important that we, you know, that we put our 2 pence in where it really matters. Where it really matters is at committee. Thank you. I'm terribly sorry, Councillor Brooke. Yes, I was telling you off. It wasn't telling off, it was just a suggestion. It was a respectful suggestion, Councillor Brooke. And our next item, I've lost my place. Our next item is power fuel, and I'm going to, we've got 6 recommendations on this, but I'm going to ask Jane to speak first because she has some guidance for you before we continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members will have seen in the agenda pack, and it's been sent around previously and is available on our website, the notification that we've had that Power Fuel have put in an appeal to the inspectorate for the energy recovery facility, the ERF works at Portland Port, more commonly referred to as an incinerator. We do have quite a tight deadline for response. So the deadline is the 10th of October, which is why it's coming to you straight to full council and hasn't been through any of the committees. There are many options open to the council actually, but there are 2 that are examined in the report. That is taking on full what's known as Rule 6 status, which is where a body or a group of bodies can apply to the planning inspectorate to become a full party to the appeal. That means you're involved in all the pre-appeal work, all the preparation of reports. You need to draft your own report and submit that to the inspectorate before the planning appeal. At the planning appeal, you're required to be there on each of the days, and it looks currently like that's scheduled for 3 or 4 weeks. You are, as a Rule 6 status holder, enabled to examine and cross-examine witnesses and call your own witnesses, and that's one of the reasons why it's suggested that anyone considering being a Rule 6 group has their own specialist advisors, because obviously you need quite a high level of knowledge to be able to cross-examine expert witnesses that might be called by Power Fuel, Dorset Council, whoever it may be, other Rule 6 parties. It's not necessarily needing to be a barrister, but it is someone who needs to understand the subject matter. The council could also not be a Rule 6 status holder, but could resubmit its original representations, which were an objection, could nominate named councillors to go and speak at the appeal, and as far as I'm aware, there's no limit on the numbers. But anyone present in this room, staff, councillors, anyone watching on YouTube, local residents, anyone can go along at the beginning of the appeal, which we think is going to start at the beginning of December. We don't have confirmation yet. Anyone can go along and ask to speak to the inspectorate, and you will be given the time to come back to the appeal. Whilst the appeal is held in public, you can all go and sit there for 3 or 4 weeks if you wish. But if you go there on the first day and say you wish to speak, you will be given a slot, a date, a time to return at some point during that appeal to make your representation. We are able to nominate people to speak on behalf of the town council, but everyone can. What I'm trying to get across is, say you agree 3 or 4 councillors to go and speak, that doesn't mean that the rest of the councillors can't go and speak independently representing their own views, is what I'm trying to get across in quite a clumsy way, Madam Mayor, if I must admit it. I've been working quite closely with Portland Town Council on this, and I thank the clerk at Portland Town Council, Matt Ryan, for his support, advice, and members will be aware, obviously, because a number of you attended the briefing that he set up with Dorset Council from a process perspective. We're working quite closely together. Dorset Council received a similar report last week, and they decided that they would not pursue Rule 6 status, and that they would instead make a financial donation towards one of the 2 organisations that we know are requesting Rule 6 status. One of those is the Stockport Waste Incinerator Group, who I know a number of you are aware of, and also a Portland-based group. It is in the report, the Portland Association. Portland Town Council have, as I say, decided not to request Rule 6 status, but will instead be allocating funding of £3,000, I understand, to the Portland Association to support their work. And one of the recommendations, Madam Mayor, is that we consider that councillors consider making a similar donation to the Stockport Waste Incinerator Group to support their Rule 6 work. We will then be able to work closely with Stockport Waste Incinerator to make sure that we're aware of the additional information they may come across, and they can help inform our response when councillors speak at the appeal. So there are 6 recommendations in front of you. The first is to dedicate responsibility to myself to resubmit our original objection with any updates that are deemed necessary, but in consultation with the Mayor and the Leader. Reason for that is that it needs to be in by the 10th of October, and so we need to get drafting that quite quickly. 2 and 3 refer to the possibility of setting up a task and finish or a working group to work with Portland. It may be that just a couple of meetings are required to ensure we're sharing information. That was more in there should the council agree to pursue a Rule 6 status going forward. And if Portland Town Council had also decided to pursue Rule 6 to ensure we work together on that. However, recommendation number 4 is that we don't pursue Rule 6. Funding required would be in excess of funds we currently hold for this type of work, because we would need to bring in some specialists to make sure that we actually made use of Rule 6 and made it work for us. We don't have that in-house, and we would be struggling to provide the officer time before the appeal to carry out the pre-work and liaise with a consultant. Also, 5 is regarding requesting finance and governance, look at a financial allocation, and 6 is to confirm nominated speakers on behalf of the council itself for the appeal. Although we don't need that until the appeal starts in December, I would like to, if possible, include that in the letter that we need to send before the 10th of October to make sure that it is noted by the inspectorate and that our standing as representatives of the local community isn't lost. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Town Clerk. All right, so you're all stunned into silence now. But I think basically what we need to do is to look at those recommendations and see which of them you want to proceed with. The advice is that we don't follow rule 6. I would suggest that we do want to look at, and I would propose that we go forward with the recommendation 1. In view of, if we decide not to go with rule 6, I would say that we don't need 2 or 3 or 4, but we most certainly need 5, and we will need 6. Has anybody got any comments on that? Councillor Gray, and then Councillor Toft, and then Councillor
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One question and maybe an amendment. Recommendation on 5 says consider a financial allocation, and then in the text further down, it sort of an IE suggests that Portland Town Council made a £3,000 donation. If we're going to make a donation of £3,000, 2 things about that. One is that a one-off, because we've already committed serious funds to this before. Concerned that 3,000 will turn into another 3,000 and another 3,000. So if we're going to recommend to F&G for the, can we have that in the actual recommendation, because it doesn't say 3,000. Ask the Finance and Governance Committee to consider a single payment of £3,000, something like that. If that's okay, and that would be.
Thank you.
Max.
Maximum. I think I will be pedantic. I think matching Portland Town Council's donation would be a fair thing to do, given that the population won't. I think that's a fair thing to do. And if they're going to be shouldering most of the work and the advice to the Stockport, I think that's a fair. It's a small amount. It's fair, but I don't want it to creep on for another 3 months.
Great. Thank you. Councillor Toft. Madam Mayor.
I feel this is probably one of the most important issues that's become before this council or previous councils in many years. And I hate to feel that we don't give it our absolute best shot to make sure that our future generations are not looking back and thinking, how on earth did they let that happen? Because I just think it really is one of the worst things that could happen to Weymouth. And in view of that, I think the optics of 2 campaign groups being the only ones defending Weymouth, as opposed to the strength of a joint town councils group, which would send a much stronger message to the inspector that we really are serious about making sure this doesn't happen. Because I mean, that I don't want to criticise the campaigners, but they are campaigners and they do go out with banners and they do, you know, a lot of the things they do are frowned on by people. And I hate the inspector to think that we are not taking this issue seriously. And also, if we do go ahead with donating money, why are we not donating all our money to the same group, enable them to enjoy the very best that they can get instead of splitting it between 2 campaign groups? That's all my comments, really. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Toft. On the question of Rule 6, Portland Town Council have voted not to do that. So we would not be united because they aren't doing it. And we've had no response from Chippenham Town Council, so we can't unite with somebody who doesn't respond to us.
If that's strong enough, could we not persuade them to change their mind?
They have said quite categorically that they will not be doing it. So there's no mileage there. We have to look to alternatives. Really, I understand what you're saying, but that's the situation. I'm going to ask the town clerk to answer your second point.
The reason the recommendation is to give an allocation to Stockport Waste Incinerator is because the Portland Association covers Portland. It's slightly different. Could I ask if the town clerk to clarify?
Apologies. So I did speak to Portland town clerk the other day, and he said that Portland is supporting the Stop Portland Waste. They have a constituted group. but the other group do. So Portland Action Group, Association, they're giving their funds to Portland Association, so it's clear and transparent, and they can see in their accountants go forward.
That's giving our money to.
No. The recommendation is that Weymouth Town Council supports Stockport Waste Incinerator because it's not constitutionally limited to Portland. The Stockport Waste Incinerator covers a much larger area and is representative of more people than the Portland Association.
Councillor Bergman, then Councillor Wakefield. Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I agree with Councillor Toft actually, and in fact I go a little bit further to say that I think the potential incinerator is the biggest challenge we've ever faced since our inception. There's a lot of evidence on the harm it would cause, not to current residents, but our children and future generations. An incinerator affects Weymouth even more than Portland, particularly due to the prevailing southwest winds. And the significant evidence that we discussed in the planning committee about a couple of years ago, clinical evidence on the effect this would have on health, particularly with children. So it is really important, and I think we've got to do everything to get behind stopping an incinerator being established, which would affect Weymouth. I agree with the first three points that the town clerk has made, that we delegate responsibility. It was a good response we put in last time. I think that should be replicated. Continue to work with the Portland team and to have nominations from this group. I don't agree with not pursuing Rule 6. Now, I'd like to look into this a bit further, but again, if we're going to put everything behind our objection, and as far as I know, nearly everybody, I only know one councillor in this room who's voted for the application. But as far as I know, we're all pretty much against it. And I just think the environmental aspects and issues for our children in the future, we just got to put everything behind stopping an incinerator. So for me, I would not like to agree not pursuing Rule 6. I'd like to look at it further. There don't have to be financial implications. We've got a lot of expertise across this room, Dr. Orr, for example, and others, where we could support the case for not having this done. So that's the only objection I would make to these recommendations. I agree with everything, apart from not pursuing Rule 6.
Thank you very much, Councillor Byrne. I don't think any of us disagree with you that this is a huge threat to our area. We all agree that. The Rule 6 situation is difficult because if we do that on our own, there isn't the expertise in this room. The expertise is expensive and complex, and we don't have it, frankly. Councillor Bray has already spoken about the financial implications, so it is a problem. So we have to do what we can within our means, and I think that's very wise that we think about that. Doesn't mean that we don't think it is enormously serious, because I believe that we all do. I'm going to go to Councillor Harris first, and then Councillor Hope, Councillor Wakefield, and then Councillor Weaving. Councillor Harris, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I think that, first of all, I just want to talk about the process, and I think when we take the vote, we should be taking one and then, or four and then one. Doesn't matter really which order those come in, but not 2 and 3, because we don't want to take 2 and 3 if we've taken 4 as suggested up there. I think I just want to remind council that it is the cost of Rule 6 that is going to be something that we've really got to consider, because if we invite a barrister to work with us, which we may well have to do if we're looking to go down that route, then they are very, very expensive. And it is something that, as individuals, as representing the council, I think we can make the case very strongly. As individuals and as council, we'll still have to be expecting to answer questions, but not to the same depth as the technical questions that are put by barristers to members of the public if they're acting under Rule 6. So I think we've got to be very, very careful if we look down that lane and have a lot more information about the total cost that process would take.
Thank you, councillor Howard.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Well, I think my first comment is important for keeping us busy at the moment. The barge, people don't want, and now the incinerator reappeal, people don't want. I can wholeheartedly support recommendation 1. I don't believe our opinion has changed. We don't want it, and we made a bloody good case why not last time. And I hear people's calls in this room around that maybe feel the council should implement Rule 6. But we've heard from our head of the establishment, head of staff, that we don't have the capacity, we don't have the expertise. So let's put our money behind an organisation that believes they do. With that, I do support the recommendation that we should ask finance and governance to consider a donation. And the reason I believe that is just look at the campaign that the Portland Waste Incinerator, Stop Portland Waste Incinerator brought to Dorset Council Planning Committee last December, wasn't it, Madam Mayor? Strong, precise, and to the point. And I actually have to resent the comments made by Councillor Toth this evening. They're not a bunch of campaigners or out waving banners and flyers and leafleting. They're intelligent people that are clued up on the facts, and they need the support of the financial here to just get them over the line with the legal facts. Yes, they do a little bit of that, but that's to get the public support and the public behind them. They know what they're doing. Let's support them, and let's move for the Finance and Governance Committee to make a financial contribution. I don't think there's no need to form any working groups, and when it comes to appointment of speakers on behalf of the council, I would like to propose that our leader and mayor goes, at least as our 2 high-profile councillors from Weymouth.
Councillor Wakeling.
Thank you very much. I very much agree. Ryan said a lot of what I wanted to say there. I watched a lot of the hearing, the Dorset Council planning hearing, and the public speakers from some of these campaign groups were very competent. I'm very impressed with the depth of their knowledge, and to think that we are some very experienced and knowledgeable people in this room, but we have not lived and breathed incinerator law for 4 years, which is what Paul has done. So I fully agree with Councillor Hope on that point. A number of us attended a briefing 2 weeks ago where we were told all about this Rule 6 thing. And yes, if all the possible partners we could partner with have evaporated, it's almost impossible for us to go solo on something like that. So I agree with that recommendation. My question is, has the Stop Portland Waste Incinerator Group actually applied for 3,000, or are we just guessing enough?
So there's been no formal application, no. Stop Portland Waste Incinerator have been fundraising, crowdfunding for their expenses, and my reasoning for putting 3,000 in is because it mirrors the financial contribution of Portland Town Council.
If I may then, so can I suggest we invite them to come to Finance and Governance and explain what they can do, what money they need, and what they can do. It's not a blank checkbook by any means, but if it's 5,000 or 3,000, or if they can come and make compelling cases, we've heard they're not technically a constituted group, so I actually want them to come and tell us, this is what your money can achieve. And I know F&G is a sensible group, so that committee can sit there and evaluate.
What else do you want this evening?
Thank you. Councillor Wheeling.
Yes, I recommend that we ignore Rule 6. That's beyond us, and that we make a small contribution, and as you stated, 3,000, and we make it with the following, that this is the full and final payment. So that will stop it going up followingly. Who was it on?
Thank you. Councillor Roos?
The issue I have is when I think of the Portland incinerator, I think, so my son could be breathing in cancer and have a suppressed immune system. That to me is worth all the money in the world to prevent. So, and that is the reality on all the research. If you look it up, what do incinerators do? They increase the cancer of the community surrounding it, and they lower your immune system, which means you do not know how you're going to fight that cancer if you get it. And it is detrimental to younger generations. So that means my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren are all going to be victims of cancer caused by an incinerator down the road. That to me, what is the point of my existence if I'm not protecting their existence? What is the point? I would throw all the money I have in the world to make sure that my children and my children's children, everybody else's kids, don't have to suffer because of a Portland incinerator. So I don't think we should be saying that there's a limit or a one-off. I feel like there is no one-off. I have only one child. I would like to say that great for now, but that might change in the future. So as Luke said, it'd be good to have people come and actually, you know, the Stop Portland incinerator come and talk to us and tell us actually what they need and how we can support them. And I don't think we should be putting restrictions, such definite restrictions at this stage. It still has a chance of being there. And by the way, I have a colleague who has sold their house on Lynch Lane and is moving to Curtis Fields because they don't want the lorries going past their house, and they believe that this will go through.
Thank you. Councillor Huckle?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would hope that Councillor Wakeling will propose what he said, because I think that should happen, that we should have people here, have a talk, find out how the land lies. The other issue in the back of my mind, and I'm not a great expert in some of these things, but I'm actually told that the health issues are more relevant to the Environment Agency, who have to grant the licence. At the moment, I believe they're stalling until planning is out of the way, so it's a bit difficult. We obviously want the planning refused, but we also want the Environment Agency to actually say it is or it isn't healthy for us. And I understand there's quite a few of these incinerators around. So I don't know if anybody answered that question at the moment. I know we have commented the Environment Agency, but it's all gone very quiet.
Very much. I'm going to allow a question or a statement from Councillor Bell, one from Councillor Orrell, Councillor Gray. I can see your hand again. What I'm going to suggest is that I ask our officers to just sort of tweak those recommendations as we've got an idea. And then I'd like us to proceed. So Councillor Bell.
I would like to basically reiterate a lot of the points that Councillor Roos has made. Cancer is a horrible thing that's affected me and my family greatly. We also know there's a huge amount of public dismay about the proposals. In the recommendations, we talk about matching Portland's donation. And yes, it is physically sited or potentially sited on Portland. But we're talking about traffic through the Weymouth area, already very, very busy, Boot Hill and other roads nearby. I would like to see us up our contribution, which I realise financially minded people might not appreciate. We have approximately, a very quick sum, just shy of 5 times the population of Portland. I feel that we should be representing our population by putting in 5 times the amount that Portland do. We are a bigger place. We are representing more people. I realise that. Made a wish to say. But this is a massive issue and I think we need to be, as others have said, throwing everything we can behind it. So if that's feasible, I think we should be making a bigger donation.
I think we've got the number taken, thank you.
Councillor Oral?
That's the bell beat me to it. Yeah, our council is bigger, we should make a bigger contribution. It will affect us quite, well, our residents quite dramatically. That's assuming we're not going to lose this. So, yes, council wages are the things to the committee, find out what they want, but I think 3,000 minimum, not the maximum. I think that's fine about the Environment Agency. Yes, they should be protecting us. Sadly, they were decimated in 2013 and they're a shadow of their former self. Witness the fact they don't test the rivers, they come to their inspections, protect our waterways. So they ought to be protecting us. Sadly, they can't, and that's a deliberate decision. So we have to defend our residents. Thanks.
Very much. Councillor Bray, very briefly.
Based on the comments, I'm happy to withdraw my amendment. Particularly the one-off bit, because I think listening to the debate, I like Councillor Wakeling's invitation, because if we effectively just mirrored the £3,000, we don't know whether that's right or wrong. I'm sort of trusting F&G to come back with, once they've heard the submission from Stockport and Waste Incinerator, that the committee can make a reasoned judgment on how much that should be, and if there are greater financial implications, F&G will have to justify those to full council. So I'll withdraw my amendment based on those comments.
Thank you very much. I'm going to try now to go to the recommendations, get proposals and go to a vote, okay? So that the first recommendation, sorry, I'm turning my back on you, I'm trying to get my voice heard at the same time. The first one, that we delegate responsibility to the town clerk to resubmit the council's original objection to the planning inspectorate with updates necessarily, as the necessary updates are required, in consultation with the mayor and the leader. I'm proposing that. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Hope, can I have a show of hands?
That is unanimous, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Point of order, what, we haven't agreed any updates. If we don't need to resubmit our original objection, because that will go to the appeal as stands. Our original.
So the guidance from Dorset Council was to resubmit and confirm the council's objection. The two updates I'm aware that are necessary was in Power Fuels' application for an appeal. They stated that they had refined their application in that a new footpath will be added to access some of the historically interesting sites near the incinerator, and that the cladding colour on the building would be amended, which they felt also went some way to improve their application. My suggestion is that to the mayor and the leader, that I will include that the town council does not feel that either of those new points go any way to address our original objections, and that all of our concerns in the independent report that we part funded from three consultants still stands. So that's the little bit I meant about necessary updates, because a couple of things have happened, and I think it's only fair to refer to those in our confirmed response.
Thank you for clarifying.
At the risk of you all pointing your finger at me again, I think that those changes are visible.
Chair.
Yes.
Could I propose 4, 5 and 6 on block?
Well, I was just going to ask that.
Not quite.
No, right, okay.
Only in as much as we haven't got in there that we're going to invite Portland Waste to come to that finance and governance.
That is fine now, isn't it?
Just to confirm that after Finance and Governance Committee to consider and determine. That will include an invitation to Stockport and Waste Incinerator to attend the meeting next week, and I believe the Assistant Town Clerk is drafting the email as we speak. While we are on this subject, Madam Mayor, if I may just offer a point of clarity, councillors will be aware that I rather rashly dispatched the F&G agenda today, a day early, as unfortunately I'm not available in the office tomorrow. Depending on how this vote goes, I may amend the agenda tonight and reissue it. Please be reassured that we are well within the legal timescales, and currently today and tomorrow we are able to amend that. And had I thought things through a little clearer, I might have delayed dispatch until after this meeting. However, capacity in the council as it is at the moment, we are up against the cosh, as it were, with regards to appropriate legal committee management. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So we're now,
I'll second Luke then on that basis.
okay, so you're proposing which numbers again, Luke? Could you just?
4, 5 and 6
4,
to
5
be
and
taken
6.
together.
Right, thank you, so.
Point of order, Chair, point of order, Madam Mayor. These are different points, and I know there are a couple of councillors who don't agree 4, but do agree 5 and do agree 6.
Okay.
So shouldn't we take that in turn?
If that's,
And probably 2 and 3 to confirm.
okay, so we'll do.
If nobody proposes 2 and 3.
Do I have any proposers for recommendation 2, please? No? Do I have any proposers for recommendation 3? No, okay.
A point of clarification, can I point out that because 2, which is a recommendation, has not come forward, it doesn't mean to say the opposite is true. In other words, if you need to work with some people, you'll be allowed to work with some people. What I'm saying is the negative of that does not apply.
But it hasn't been proposed.
Yeah,
Councillor Legg.
that's right.
Did you want to propose the?
No,
negative?
To not work.
I just don't want people saying because that didn't go through, it means we agree with the opposite of it. No, you'll work for people, you'll come a cause.
Let's vote for something that's not up there.
Thank you very much, Councillor Legg.
As amended, 4, 5 and 6 separately.
We are now on recommendation 4. A proposal, please. Councillor Wakeling, seconded by Councillor Legg, show of hands.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 24.
Thank you. Recommendation.
Those again.
Sorry, I'm sorry, it's, those against.
1, 2, 3.
Any abstentions?
And there should be none. 6 and 23.
Okay, we're now on recommendation 5 as amended up there on the screen. Can I have a proposal? I think we already had Councillor Wakeling, Councillor Gray, okay? Show of hands.
Is unanimous, Chair?
Thank you very much. And recommendations 6.
Madam Mayor, that's not what was recommended. It was recommended that those 2 were part of the 4.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Well, we can sort that out now, Councillor Legg, on recommendations of named.
No, it wasn't. That's what I suggested.
Could we have recommendations, please, for those speakers on behalf of the council at the appeal? That does not prevent anyone else from going along and speaking. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I would like to confirm that I nominate the Mayor, being yourself, and the leader, Councillor David Harris, to be our nominated speakers at the appeal.
Do we have anyone to second that?
I'd just like to say if there were any others, because it was suggested that we had up to 4. So if anybody else would like to nominate themselves to get added to that list officially, please do so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, shouldn't that amendment say that? And others as appropriate.
Yeah, I'm open to nominations now for anyone who would wish to add their name to that list now. Councillor Hamilton?
Yeah.
I'd be happy to be one of the speakers.
Thank you. Councillor Bergman? Councillor Bergman? You Councillor Bergman? 4. Okay. Okay. Ryan, you proposed that, didn't you?
I propose the first 2.
Are you happy to add the other names into your proposal and then we can go for seconder? No? Okay, you'll propose that list, all right, do we have a seconder for that list? Councillor Frost? Can I have a show of hands, please?
You just.
Thank you very much, Councillor It's all got to get started, Councillor That's all those recommendations I dealt with, so thank you very much indeed. Right, we're now on to item 11. I think we know on the time. Item 11 is the corporate key performance indicators. Chairman of F&G, do you want to present this? Or do you want the town clerk to? Chairman.
I'm currently the vice chairman because the chairman left the committee.
The chairman of F&D.
Yes.
No,
Yes,
so
yes.
the committee will be voted.
Voting for a new chairman next week, won't you? Councillor Wakeling, would you like to present?
Rather awkwardly, I wasn't on F&G when this went through F&G. So.
Can I ask the town clerk to present, if that's all right, town clerk? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's long been an aspiration of the council and senior officers to bring in a suite of corporate key performance indicators to allow us to track our performance as a council and to work on our programme of continuous improvement as stated in our 7 key priorities as a council. This suite of indicators has been through finance and governance, I believe, a couple of times, as well as in front of the HR committee. You'll see on the page 9 of the agenda, the KPIs are listed. There isn't a huge number of them to allow us to focus on some key areas. The environmental KPIs are to follow from CEE and will come forward for separate approval. And it's just to note that the service-related KPIs are going to come from each of the service plans that will be going before in the Environment and Services Committee in the coming months. Happy to respond to any questions, as may some members of F&G who are here.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I am on F&G, so hopefully you will indulge me to speak and not tell me off. But again, it's really, I just want to pick up on the fact that the environmental KPIs are still blank. Because I know that CEE have met since the F&G meeting, and this doesn't seem to be on their radar still. And I'm just slightly concerned that as a council has declared a climate emergency and spends a lot of time focused on our environmental objectives, we still have no measurable KPIs. So I would like to request as part of the recommendation, if I can, that the request for CEE to urgently review and identify KPIs is done at their next meeting, and that this comes back for adoption at the next full council. No, sorry, just to clarify, just the environmental KPIs.
Right, thank you.
Happy with the rest of the stands.
Okay. We'll just get that there and then we can, vote on the recommendation, if that's all right with everyone. So, sorry. Councillor Ferrari wants to speak.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm fine with all of this. I'm just mildly uncomfortable that 10% of the staff appraisals might not be carried out on time because it's a controllable event. I mean, it's not like something that we can't schedule.
I think there are these examples.
Sorry, I'm just trying to get, is it environmental KPIs to the next full council or F&G?
Sorry, Councillor Ferrari.
Sorry.
If you don't want me to interject, I think really they should go to F&G before coming to full council about the process.
It can be linked, so.
Right.
F&G before.
I'm sorry, Councillor Ferrari, would you like to ask your question again, please, because we've been talking.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Or, sorry, your comment.
Comfortable with all of this, but I'm uncomfortable with 90% as a number for the percentage of staff appraisals carried out on time. I think it should be bigger than that, so it's within our control, and it's not an external event that we monitor.
I'm going to go to the assistant clerk for an answer to that.
Councillor Ferrari, so the 10% only actually equates to about 5 or 6 members of staff, when we look at full-time equivalents. And we need to take into consideration long-term sickness, absence, holidays and so forth, because we've got quite a short time scale to achieve it.
Do a deal at 9 to 5?
No deal. That's 2.5.
Is Councillor Wakeling?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's something about this that I'm not 100% behind. And that's because I think what we're measured in is what our residents see. And these are all very internal things. And the risk is with everything, we end up with like an admin, which is just not producing output. And it's to me, we should be trying to focus our efforts on something that residents will see and touch and experience. So, yes, I think the service KPIs are far more important than these, really, because that is where our residents will judge us and the council. These may be our tools to get there, but there's something I'm not comfortable about. And particularly the income achieved, that represents, I think, a 0.3% increase from last year, with inflation running at 10%. Really, that's not really aiming very high, in my opinion. But I know we've been trying to get to the million mark for some years, but we were so close last year, it's almost a non-target. So personally, I'm just not convinced by this one, but.
Right. Do we have? Sorry, Councillor Gray.
I have some sympathy with Councillor Wakeling's view, and I will reserve that until I've seen all the service KPIs as well, because I think KPIs should be taken as a suite, and then you say, does that deliver for the residents? So service KPIs alongside HR KPIs. I sort of partly agree with Councillor Ferrari and with Councillor Wakeling that some of them look a bit soft. Particularly the income, we should be trying to drive down complaints or drive up percentages rather than, so, not for now, but for future, some sort of stretch targets would be good, which is what's the standard processing KPI management. Not for this year, but my one wordsmith issue is on the impact assessment under resources, the yellow dots. It says some staff resource will be required to monitor and collect the data. It doesn't sound like a staff resource, it sounds like a senior leadership team, because that's what the senior leadership team should be doing. I know they are staff, but it doesn't quite read in the way that, because it's for management to drive out action plans from KPI or improvements. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just to note, just above the table of KPIs, it does says the following KPIs are recommended by the Finance Governance Committee. Figures are for benchmarking purposes and will be reviewed annually. Should members wish to review them annually or suggest changes here, up for some stretch targeting, we just want to benchmark where we are. And the resourcing, being a staff resource, is because we're going to be relying on our managers to let us know when their staff appraisals were carried out. We're going to be relying on the comms team to run the survey and to analyse those results to us. So there is obviously managers' time, we'll review that, but we're relying on our managers to feed those into the SLT.
Point taken.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Obviously, these are important to our residents because it's a measure of how we're performing. So presumably these will be published annually on our website so that people can see how we are performing.
They will be, because they'll form part of the agenda that is a public document and freely available to anyone who wishes to read it. So this draft suite is freely publicly available, and these will be reported back by full council, free, open, transparent reporting.
Right, I think we've had quite a good debate on this. We note the suggestions, can we note the suggestions that have been made in terms of the service KPIs and the comments that Councillor Ferrari made? And in view of that, I'd like to ask for somebody to propose the recommendation, please. Councillor Gray, somebody seconding? Councillor Legg, thank you. Can I have a show of hands, please?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Thank you. Those against? Abstentions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next item is item 12, which is the Dorset Council housing consultation. We're on a really short deadline on this, which is why it's come straight here. And I'm going to go straight to Jane to make some comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors will be aware from a couple of emails that have come round that Dorset Council are currently consulting on their housing provision. This originally went to the Planning and Licensing Committee, who felt that there hadn't been sufficient feedback from councillors. It was recirculated. The report in this agenda reflects both the findings that were taken to P&L and the feedback we've had afterwards. I am aware, Madam Mayor, that a couple of councillors were unable to get their feedback in time, and so councillors may have additional points to add. But the attached report, which is recommended to you by myself, is an amalgamation of all feedback received. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Harris?
Thank you, yes. My worry is that we are kind of contradicting ourselves in this report. If we look at question 2, it says more homes which are accessible and or adapted for disabled people, very low in the priorities. Support to help people live independently in their own homes, even less support for that. Yet further on, it's got providing more housing with support for adults was very high, was the top. So how can you support people having houses for all those that we've rejected in the earlier paragraphs? It seems that we're contradicting ourselves there, but it also seems that the report is not making it clear where and what it actually means for some of the statements that it makes. And the second point I'd like to bring to people's attention is that in question 5, anything missing, we've added, and rightly so, key objectives should include whilst battling climate change and protecting our world-class natural environment. We should not be supporting homes that will actually create more sewage going into our water supplies. We should not be creating homes that are going to add to the carbon that we generate because they're not insulated properly and things like that. So that is something that Dorset Council didn't seem to have any concerns about when they actually produced this survey.
Councillor Rose?
Oh, it's working. Hello. I agree with Councillor Harris on that. It's a bit confusing with where the priorities are. But I did like that reading through the rest of the report. There were the important things there in response to questions. So the extras that we want, the extra needs for residents. I think that there is a real, well, we all know there's a housing crisis. But working in mental health, I'm working with a lot of people who are leaving hospital, and many of them are homeless. That concerns me. And so we're doing extra research on exactly how many people are homeless. But if I give you an example of numbers, if I've worked with about 10 people regularly in the last month, 4 of those have been homeless. And that's in Weymouth alone. So every month I'm getting more and more people who have no proper accommodation, which means that they're in B&Bs or temporary accommodation. And that's not, when you're at your most vulnerable, that's the worst place to be. You need a safe space, you need your own space to be able to move into once you've had some form of crisis in your life. So I really do think that for the most vulnerable people in our communities, having more housing is a high priority. And I'll be honest, I think most people that I work with will take that housing any way it comes, as long as they have a roof over their head, that they could call theirs and they felt safe. So I do think that the rest of the report or the feedback that we have is kind of embracing that. But what confuses me is the kind of that graph thing, like Councillor Harris has pointed out, like where our priorities are. I don't know, that kind of confuses me a little bit. But then everybody's got a different view and opinion and a different experience of housing, haven't they? So I have to go with that. But I do think we should be supporting the most vulnerable the most.
Thank you, Councillor Northern, and then I think it's Councillor Wakefield, is that?
Thank you very much. 3 quick points. Councillor Nicholson asked, what's the definition of affordable housing? If you look at question 2, the top line, that's confusing. What it should refer to is social housing, both social rent and affordable rent. Because those are the categories of social housing and affordable housing. Grid as it is, it's a bit confusing, but nevertheless, what's important is the score are very important. So thank you for that, everyone. Second point, I'm worried about this survey because the statistics which are used in the report that goes forward are for the whole of Dorset, and they average everything out. So you no longer see where the black spots are or the really needy places are, because it's being looked at not at a district council level or a local council level, it's being looked at the unitary council level. So everything's getting averaged up. If you look at those numbers, some of them look quite reasonable, because on average, home prices are not that expensive. Tell that to somebody in Weymouth. And so I made a point under question 3, no focus on local geographical areas where there are identified needs as indicated by the index of multiple deprivation or social mobility. We've got parts of Weymouth which really struggle to afford access to housing, both for purchase and for rent. So that's an important point, I feel. And the last part is Dorset Council once had in their policy in the 2020 to 2024 plan a statement around words something like, we recognise the importance of affordable housing and we will use our council assets where needed to deliver this. That is not repeated in this strategy or referenced in the strategy, and that's why I've added it in a number of places under the question. So I put it in the question 5, plan to use Dorset Council assets to address the need, and it's also similarly stated in answer to other questions. Really important that we move to that. I think just mentioning Councillor O'Leary said just the same thing in Dorset Council this week. Really important to have social housing, and we should be using Dorset Council assets. Rare for me to agree with you, Louis, but you're right on that one. And it's what's in our neighbourhood plan. So I urge every member to respond individually to this housing consultation, putting in your postal address. Thank you.
Very much, Councillor Wakeling.
Thank you, Mother. Just a sort of point of progress. Because the chair of planning is not here tonight, so I'll just try and, he might have said this himself. It's in the report. A draft of this came to P&L, and there were only 4 responses received by councillors. So at that point, we asked to have it recirculated around all of us, and I think we've got up to 7 responses. Unfortunately, that's what's produced, and thank you to people like Councillor Northern that have filled in lots of the gaps, because that's given us something. This is the town council's draft proposal we'd like to propose, but any individual, any member of the public at home, the links in the agenda, you can click on it, fill it in yourself, put your own views in, because that's important. So if you haven't yet done so, please make sure you do that. But on the basis that this is the consolidated input from all of us, and yes, in some ways it slightly contradicts, because it's the sum of people's opinions. Can I propose the draft as in the report, please?
I'll second it.
Other people want to speak to them?
Sorry, I've still got Councillor Bergman, and is that Councillor Ferrari as well? So Councillor Bergman, Councillor Ferrari, and then we'll go to the next.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Similar to this point, it's one process. So, Councillor Dickens is not here today, and what we agreed at planning was that he would circulate another email around councillors to see if there are any responses. And there may well be more than 7 as well. So, for example, a couple of days ago, I emailed the town clerk with my particular view on one of these. Now, we're all going to have slightly different views on this, and what I would suggest is that the town clerk correlates subsequent responses over and above the report that already been submitted. Takes it, and we're allowing her really to take a judgment on how these should fit in, amend this appropriately, and then send this off as the council's opinion. And I agree with Luke that we also should be putting in personal submissions as well, if we feel strongly about this. So basically, in summary, I think if Jane correlates to the other responses that come in, there's 7, there's probably more than that. Adds that to the list, takes a view on how that should be replicated in this charts, sends that off accordingly, and then obviously we've all got the ability to put our personal submissions in.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrari, and then we're going to the vote, okay?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can I question 2, that 6 box down, is support to help people live independently in their own homes. I can't support a not important response from this council. I mean, the alternative to not supporting people living independently in their own homes is to move them into care. And I can't see that that's a one. Under the mechanism, Madam Chair, that we're proposing is that the town clerk takes his comments on board and modifies them. But that, I mean, I'd vote 3 or 4 for that, certainly not 1.
Agree.
Well, is that what we'll do with it now, Madam Chair? Will the town clerk take that away and?
The town clerk is noting all of your comments now and will aim to incorporate them within her response.
Okay.
Bearing in mind that we are on a very tight deadline now. Happy to.
Yeah. Second comment is on question 5, bullet point 2. A key objective should include, whilst battling climate change and protect our world-class natural environment, including not building outside the current development boundary.
Right, I'm going to,
Sorry, was that, could I just ask for clarification now? Are you proposing a new comment?
I think that's what
I-
Town Clerk's doing.
not having a conversation backwards and forwards now, because we've had quite a long discussion, and we've had, you know, I know that this has been quite tight, but we have been reminded a number of times to get our comments into the town clerk so that she could do her response. What I do suggest is that we now, you've had quite
Madam
a lot
Chair, I
of.
must speak on this because that is deliberately intended. That statement building should not be outside of the development boundary. It's contrary to what we're proposing in the neighbourhood plan.
Yeah.
Agreed. And I think it's deliberately so, and it's been snuck in at the last minute in the debate. But I'm not happy that we're taking things just on the basis of one person saying so.
To break a little bit, possibly with protocol here, and I'm doing it reluctantly, but I will do it. And that is to say, I'm not going to ask for proposals or anything else. I'm just going to ask for a show of hands. How many of you here, just so it gives Jane an idea when she's doing her response, how many of you here are supportive of the idea that development never occurs outside of the development boundary? Okay. Two. Okay, so that gives you an indication there. I'll go back to what I was saying. I'm sorry if that sounds a bit autocratic, but we need to go forward. We do, each of us have the opportunity to write our own responses, and I do encourage you to do so, bearing in mind we've got to do it pretty quickly now, okay? I've got a feeling, I'm now, where I was, Luke, did you propose the recommendation?
I did, I believe there's now one checkbox has moved, is that correct? Now, if that's just one tick box moved from what's printed, yes, I'll propose.
Okay.
Well, except no. Because the suggestion from councillor Bergman was that then I go back and look at the late submissions, factor those in, amend it further, and then send it up.
Could I object to that? Because we're here to discuss and agree something. There have been 2 circulations of this for people to enter, and we've made those entries. To agree stuff which we haven't even seen is not right. Those comments can come forward as strongly worded individual responses, and that's how these late submissions should be dealt with. I think that would be out of process to include it on the basis that Councillor Bergman suggested. It has to be done by the 2nd of October. There isn't time for it to go around.
Chair, we're having a debate on.
I'm trying to deal with that, Councillor Fryer, and understand. I'm going to let Councillor Hope come in very quickly, and then we're going to a vote. No more, okay?
Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second councillor Wakefield's proposal, which is to accept as printed in the reports with the change of the 1 tick box. All other submissions should be individually done.
Okay, thank you. Right, we've got a proposer and a seconder. I want a show of hands, please. Sorry, hang on, we're ahead of time clock.
Yeah.
Okay, now can I have a show of hands?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 20, 21, 22.
Those against? No, any abstentions? One, okay. Thank you very much. And I'll say again, do get your responses in individually so that you know that your quite specific proposal is put there. Right. Item 13. This has been withdrawn to this evening's meeting, and we will come back to it at the next meeting. Moving on to.
Sorry, Madam Mayor, can I ask why that's been withdrawn? It's in the printed papers.
It is in the printed papers, but It was decided that some further discussion was required. At the request of the Western group, the thing was withdrawn. It will come back to the next meeting where it can be properly, well, it will have been properly discussed, it can be properly dealt with.
Okay. It would be nice to know that in the introduction to the meeting.
I apologize. Item 14 is the bench policy. Hopeful to lead on this.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Taking advice from you previously, I just want to note that this updated policy has been through the Environment Services Committee, where it was unanimously agreed. The changes can basically make business as usual work more easier for officers to do and takes it out of the committee process. So I'm happy to propose on behalf of the Environment Services Committee that this policy is adopted.
Second.
Can I have a show of hands, please?
Taking a long time.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 13, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22.
Any against? No. No, abstention.
There was one abstention.
Right, item 15, sorry. Item 15 is the scattering of ashes policy. I'd like to thank those of you who worked on this because it's a sensitive subject, a very important one. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Once again, another policy that comes forward this evening for the councillors from the Environment Services Committee. This one was again unanimously agreed at our meeting. Purpose of the policy, for those who have not fully read it, is to give a clear understanding and instruction how we will handle the scattering of ashes. It also gives our officers a way to enforce clearing up of what sometimes can become monuments where ashes are scattered. So much needed policy, very well written by Adrian, who was our new amenities manager, and I'm happy to propose this.
Thank you very much. Second, Councillor Roos, who wants to speak?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sorry, I don't think I was at that committee meeting now, I wasn't. As somebody who recently scattered ashes on a beach in June, it was a National Trust beach, and I asked them, is there any special permission that I needed? Their response was, make sure that there's no bathers. And that's it.
Yeah.
I don't know why we've got so many numbers of things that people need to go through. And can I just say it's taken 2 years to organise being able to scatter the ashes because of the weather, because of the wind, because of getting people together, that we have to add even more like hurdles to people doing this. So I have to say, I don't agree with, I agree with 1, 3, 5, 6 and 7. But on 7, it could be changed to include areas of bathers and to be aware of the wind and then remove everything else, because suggesting that people try not to put ashes in their families' faces, I'm pretty sure most people don't have that intention. But if it happens, is somebody going to jump out of the bushes and tell them that they accidentally put ashes in someone's face? On 1, I can understand that it's better to suggest people get in touch with Green Spaces Manager. But most beaches and green spaces that I know of, that I've had to be in touch with, didn't expect anybody to get in touch with them. I just wonder if it might be worth just saying it's a recommendation that they could get in touch with the best times and days, but that no specific time is arranged, because I'm not joking, to actually arrange a time to scatter ashes is literally impossible, and you'll just be making it a prolonged process of people waiting for the perfect time agreed by a Green Spaces Manager as to when they can do it. And then that day happens to be a thunderstorm, and then they have to get back in touch with the Green Spaces Manager to ask if they can rearrange the time and date. It's causing more hassle to people who just are going to do it, whether the Green Spaces Manager gives them permission or not. Number 2, I think it's a shame that people aren't allowed to place flowers. It's okay to say it, but I would say that people are going to do it whether you like it or not. It's the way that people want to grieve, it's grieving process, and actually through therapy, we expect people to be as cathartic as possible in order to process the grieving process properly. On number 4, there may be reasons why people want to do it at the time that they're doing it. I have to say, for Cogden Beach, they didn't tell me to do it in low tide or high tide. Do it when you want. I don't know why we're telling them to do it in high tide or low tide. There might be a reason, but if on a Monday morning at 3 a.m. Somebody says that the green spaces manager booked them in, and then there's a storm and the tide is in, do they have to contact the green spaces manager to rearrange that because the tide was in or the tide wasn't in?
Yes, thanks, Maurice. Can I bring the assistant clerk in, who's done quite a lot of research on this and can probably answer all of your questions, because you clearly well, hopefully those questions can be answered.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Firstly, obviously, this is the first we've had any of these questions. The policy has been out in the public domain for the last few weeks, so in advance, anything to do, please contact for meetings so we can try and address them when we're at the draft stage. What I would say with regards to the paperwork, the reason we're asking for it is because, say for example, we decided to build a park or do a development in one of our open spaces, we would not want to do that. Or if we were to do that, at least we have the courtesy and we can then contact the individuals that may be possibly affected by works or anything happening in the area. So that's why we're doing it. The high water mark was something suggested by the resort manager, and the timings and so forth. Again, it's situational on how to read. So we would be really compassionate, and we understand that things do change, and we would be, treat every situation with compassion, and we would be as flexible as possible with that.
So could not some of them be removed and it kept simply as if you wish to scatter ashes on our green spaces and beaches, please get in touch with our green spaces manager who can guide you on the most appropriate times and places to do that, and that we may build on green spaces in the future. That's 2 things. You've rounded it up and you've stopped putting restrictions on people who want to scatter ashes. Because I tell you now, if I want to do it at 3 in the morning on Weymouth Beach at high tide, I'm doing it.
To be honest with you, I think scattering of ashes is a very private and personal thing. People will do it wherever we say, whether we have policies, procedures, and God knows what. Or, I don't think people are going to bother about that. And they're just going to go and do it. And if they won't risk being banged up with 5,000 out for doing it, they probably will. So I think this is a very nice thing to have. But the reality of it is, I think it's probably very good.
Councillor James.
I think there's some sense in what's been said. I mean, we scattered my dad's ashes off of Candy in the River Thames. No permission needed, just went and did it. And I have to say, I did do some research a couple of years ago when it was the anniversary of the Falklands to see if we could throw certain things into Portland Harbour, and somebody wanted to scatter some ashes. We were told we couldn't because of an environmental issue into the sea. So I guess there is an environmental issue which is scattering ashes willy-nilly in the sea. I certainly wouldn't like to go swimming and find somebody's ashes just floating past me when I'm swimming, but I don't know. We probably don't need as much authorisation and, red tape.
I'd like to come in just on the reason we wanted to consider this. We are aware that there is nothing stopping anyone going and scattering ashes at 3 o'clock in the morning. We're not going to have cameras out. We're going to be issuing fixed penalty notices. What this is intended to do is enable our resort manager and our green spaces manager to manage these significant environmental impacts of scattering ashes, as Councillor James has alluded to. We've had some significant areas of damage in our parks and open spaces because of the issues caused by ashes. Cremation ashes are not the same as the ashes from your fireplace. I know we've had some feedback online that, well, my nan used to scatter the ashes from our coal fire on the rose beds and it was brilliant for the roses. Cremation ashes are completely different. They're full of very toxic chemicals, extremely high levels of phosphorus, which will kill trees, plants and shrubs and large areas of grass, and it's highly toxic to marine life. Some of the reasons why we brought in some of the guidelines around the beach is because we are a very high traffic, nationally and internationally recognised tourist area with over 1.5 million visitors each year, and we want to make sure we preserve that environment for people to visit without encountering random piles of stuff that isn't sand and that could be toxic to dogs, children, and it's just not nice to think that you could be making your sand castle out of granddad. So the reason for bringing this in is just to attempt to manage the environmental impacts and to give people some guidance. It's not well understood how toxic cremation ashes are. So part of this is an education for people coming here. We're a very popular area. Lots of people want to scatter ashes here. We just need to manage that appropriately to minimise the impact on our assets and minimise the expenditure that we then need to put that right and to maintain confidence from the public. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Bruce. I'm going to let you speak very briefly, then Councillor Wakeling.
So is there not a way to word that as just guidance on parks, green spaces and beaches so that residents are aware it's just a guidance and it's not set rules? I'm just thinking ambiguously, and I have to say National Trust beaches are pretty well protected beaches. They have a lot of money invested in environmental research and protecting their environments. And they literally replied with, make sure that you don't scatter the ashes while there are bathers in the sea. And I think that's pretty much covers it all for a beach. If you're doing it when you make sure that nobody is swimming in the oceans and it's quiet and you're not going to be disturbing anyone's swimming time, then that's enough, isn't it? Or because people are still going to do it, aren't they?
Thank you. Councillor Wakeling.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a reminder, members, that all our policies are living documents. They're not set in stone. They will be reviewed. The committee structure can always re-examine them and tweak them in the future. So I think it's, and the other thing I'd like to add is, although some people will just do what they want anyway, a lot of people will look on our website for some guidance of some sort, and if there's a document there, they'll look at it, and if they might ignore 10% of it, but at least we've provided some information for them. They may get in touch with us, they may just not, but at least there's something there to help guide them at what can be a very challenging time in life. So as far as I can, it's gone through the Environment Services Committee, it's got to us. I think we should adopt it, and if it gets tweaked in 6 months or a year with a bit of experience, then that's how we improve things.
Councillor Burnham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Hope may just correct me here, but the officer did report that they do get quite a lot of requests that come to the office, and this was more about mitigating that continued dialogue and having the same conversation over and over again, but rather having policy there so the general public can view it and obviously make arrangements for them.
Councillor Orrell, and then we'll go to the vote, please.
Yeah, I'd like to back up the idea of letting this go through as it stands. It is guidance. No one's going to be going after people who do their own thing. But with those that are willing to seek guidance, it's very appropriate. I've been looking at while the debate's been going on, and the town clerk's right, the danger of ashes is concentration of phosphate and things like mercury from things, but particularly the phosphate, which needs to be spread quite thinly. So if it's in a concentrated area, it does cause damage. So this policy is as sensitive as it can be. It is quite appropriate, I think.
Thank you very much. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much for allowing me to come back in, Madam Mayor. I'm just happy within the proposal that I made to try and listen to some of the points put around this evening, if we can request a 12-month review on this back at the Environment Services Committee. Yeah.
Right, would you like to make that proposal then, Councillor Hope, and we'll go for a second on that? Yeah, okay, right, we'll have that in then. You've already proposed, I mean, you, Councillor Berman has seconded, can I have a show of hands, please?
2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20.
Against?
1.
Abstain? Very much. We're now on to item 16, which is the Lynch Lane lease. You've got all the paperwork on this. This is to formalise, something we debated quite strongly earlier in the year. Can I just remind you, if we go into any financial matters, we'll have to go into closed session, so please guard against that if you can. Is Councillor Gray leading on this, or who's leading on it? Your hands waving around.
I've got a couple of questions, they're not financial, so I'm not sure we need to go into exam.
Okay. Yes.
Sadly.
I'll just get the assistant clerk to introduce Councillor Gray, and then you can come in with your questions, okay?
Thank you. So this has been before, the negotiations were discussed at full council on the 29th of March. So this is basically just a time until what has already been agreed to terms and conditions, length, break clauses, and the financial information was all discussed at full council in March. So you all are aware of the contents. This is just a procedure of signing and sealing in accordance with our financial regulations.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gray.
Which makes my questions look really bad because I was in that room negotiating that contract. But suddenly, so I did read it again, sadly. I just wondered, 3.10 mentions no use of a forklift. I just, sadly, do we use a forklift? No, we don't. And then 3.13 relates to heating. No heating, but we actually have heating there, so I was a bit worried when we were signing this contract that we've already got a biomass boiler there. So
It says about landlord's prior approval, and they are fully aware of what's happening on site.
thank you.
And the first point was related to.
A forklift, I don't know whether we had a forklift or whether we use one, because it seems like there's big things to move around.
Can I propose we sign the lease?
Do I have a second of this? Councillor Wheeling, can I have a show of hands?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
Thank you. Do you have any objections? Any abstentions? No, Councillor Wattley.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much. Item 17, information items. Does anyone have any points they wish to make on these? Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I don't know, get too much into it, but I kind of feel the forward plan isn't truly reflecting the workloads of committees. And I understand, there's a real capacity issue in getting the agendas ready at the moment. So would the town clerk agree with me that if we desperately do need to fill the vacancy for a democratic officer, and that if anyone is watching the meeting live, that the post is vacant and being advertised currently?
I'd like to thank the Chair of Environment and Services for promoting the unique and exciting opportunity currently being advertised on our website to become a key linchpin in the council's governance and decision-making processes. As you will have noted from the advert, it's a fully flexible role, can be a full or part-time. We're open to variable hours working, term time, other considerations around caring responsibilities, or any other offers a prospective applicant might wish to talk to myself the assistant town clerk or the deputy town clerk about, but yes, you're right, what a wonderful opportunity for someone who wanted to either start their career or use their extensive skills to support the council. The reason that not everything that's going to come forward is on the forward plan is there are some things we can plan for. And then there is a large part of the council's work that is reactive and comes around driven by work by Dorset Council, Dorset Police, other partners. So whilst the forward plan is, as it said in the report, a plan, and it's what we know is coming forward, because we are such a dynamic and responsive council, it's impossible to say with any certainty months in advance what exciting things will be coming before you for decision.
How many people are watching us online?
Two.
Do you want to sing it?
Sure.
Oh, come on, let's move on.
Can we get back to you on that, councillor Lynn? Councillor Hope, did you have something to say? Sorry, thank you, Stella.
If you do indulge me once more, Madam Mayor, I think our town clerk did this.
Two are still with us.
Our town clerk did this key point in the job description, that it will also work with 29 wonderful running town councils.
Right, unless anybody else has anything quite so wonderful to say, I'm going to call the meeting closed. Thank you very much indeed for your patience.
Who would like to